Welcome to BiochemSerye Learning on the Go, designed for, well, busy people, I guess you could say, who want to learn complex topics quickly and thoroughly. So this is 1A Biochemistry and Medicine, and we're going to uncover how biochemistry is really like the foundation of how we understand health and disease, and I think even the future of medicine. No magic here, just clear explanations and hopefully some mind-blowing insights for everyone. You ready to dive in?
Let's go.
All right, so first things first. What exactly is biochemistry? I mean, there are tons of resources out there, but Professor Dave on YouTube breaks it down nicely as they study these big, fascinating biomolecules, proteins, DNA, the whole gang, and how they react and interact to basically create the magic of life.
Yeah, it's like biochemistry is the bridge between chemistry and biology. Chemistry focuses on, those tiny atoms and molecules. Biology is looking at cells and organisms. And biochemistry sits right in between, studying these larger molecules that really make life possible.
It's that in-between science which makes it so important to understanding, well, everything about how our bodies work. And that's what this deep dive is really all about. How does biochemistry impact medicine? Something that I think you and I both see firsthand with our students every day.
Absolutely. Whether they're med students or biochem majors, they have to understand the molecules and their interactions. It explains how thousands upon thousands of reactions work together to keep us, alive and kicking.
Our bodies are like these incredibly complex symphonies with all these different instruments playing together in harmony. And as teachers, sometimes I think it's hard to get students to see those connections, those larger themes.
Oh, it is for sure. They get so bogged down in the details, the individual instruments, that they miss the overall composition. That's why I love that symphony analogy. It helps them see the bigger picture.
I agree. So then what happens when one of those instruments goes out of tune, so to speak?
That's when we start to see disease. When the molecules and their reactions don't go as planned, things start to fall apart. And in order to actually effectively diagnose and treat those illnesses, we need to understand the biochemistry behind those malfunctions.
It's really amazing. And this is where that fascinating two-way street between biochemistry and medicine comes in, right?
Absolutely. Biochemical research helps us understand diseases in much greater detail, and at the same time, studying these diseases opens up completely new avenues for biochemical research. It's a really beautiful cycle of discovery. Take sickle cell anemia, for example.
Okay, sickle cell anemia. It's incredibly debilitating, and it all comes down to one single amino acid difference in hemoglobin, the protein that carries oxygen in our red blood cells. One tiny change, one amino acid out of hundreds can throw the entire system off. It's almost hard to believe sometimes.
It is incredible. It really highlights how even the tiniest changes at the molecular level can have huge consequences for a person's health. Everything has to be just right for that symphony to, play beautifully, and it really underscores the power of understanding those molecular mechanisms if we really want to develop effective treatments.
Definitely. And speaking of groundbreaking discoveries, our Harper textbook mentions Archibald Garrod, a true pioneer in the field. Didn't he kind of lay the foundation for the entire field of human biochemical genetics?
He did. It was the early 1900s, long before we had the tools we have today, and he was studying this group of seemingly unrelated disorders, alkaptonuria, albinism, cystinuria, and pentasuria, and he observed that there were these patterns of inheritance in families affected by these conditions, and he made a truly revolutionary connection.
He was basically doing genomics before genomics was even a thing.
Right. He proposed that these disorders were caused by inherited errors in metabolism, what he called inborn errors of metabolism. So he was essentially saying that our genes directly influence our biochemistry. It was groundbreaking work that laid the foundation for the whole field of human biochemical genetics.
Wow, it makes you wonder how many other secrets are hidden within these, less common conditions, and how much more will we learn as our tools and understanding kind of evolve.
Absolutely. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about familial hypercholesterolemia. It's a genetic disorder that causes dangerously high cholesterol levels. It might seem like a very specific condition, but it provides this really fascinating window into a fundamental process, how cells take up molecules from their surroundings.
So by studying this one disease, we're learning about something that's crucial for all cells, how they interact with their environment, and how they transport molecules across their membranes. I think this is a great example for students. It helps them see that even seemingly niche research can reveal essential insights applicable to, a wide range of cellular processes.
Exactly. Now, of course, we can't talk about breakthroughs in medicine without mentioning the Human Genome Project. It's been a complete game changer, giving us this incredible blueprint of our genetic makeup.
It's like having a detailed map of this vast, uncharted territory. But what are some of the key takeaways from the HGP that our students should really grasp? How has it kind of revolutionized our understanding of health and disease?
Well, first and foremost, it's accelerated our understanding of genes and their functions. By sequencing the human genome, we've been able to identify thousands of genes, and we've gained insights into their roles in various biological processes. And this has had huge implications for personalized medicine, where we can now look for specific mutations in a patient's DNA that might, predispose them to certain diseases or influence how they respond to certain medications.
That's incredible. It's like having this dictionary of our genes, and we can look up what each one does and how it contributes to our overall health.
Exactly. And this knowledge has actually led to the development of entirely new fields of research, like the really exciting world of omics. We can now study the complete set of something in a cell or organism, all the RNA molecules, which is transcriptomics, all the proteins, which is proteomics, all the carbohydrates, which is glycomics, all the lipids, lipidomics, and even all the small molecules involved in metabolomics.
Wow, that's a lot of omics. So instead of just looking at a single gene or protein, we can now analyze these complex interconnected systems. It's like going from a solo to a full orchestra.
Precisely. And this is where things get really interesting, especially for the future of medicine. Just imagine the possibilities.
Like personalized medicine, where treatments are tailored to an individual's unique genetic and molecular profile, or gene therapy to cure diseases by correcting faulty genes.
Exactly. It's a new era of medicine, and biochemistry is at the forefront.
Before we move on, I want to bring us back to that symphony analogy for a second. I think it's such a powerful way to understand how interconnected everything is within our bodies.
Yeah.
But what happens when one instrument goes out of tune? How does that disrupt the harmony of our health? It seems like a simple question, but I think there's a lot to unpack there.
There is. It's a question that's been driving medical research for centuries, and it'll continue to do so as our understanding of biochemistry evolves. Why don't we delve into some specific examples when we come back? That question about the out-of-tune instrument really gets at what we're trying to do as biochemists and medical professionals. I think, we're trying to understand not just the individual players, but how they all work together to create that beautiful, complex symphony of life. And then, of course, when things go wrong, we need to figure out what's causing the dissonance and how to bring it back into harmony.
It's a really great way to think about it. So let's dive into some concrete examples. Where do you see this symphony analogy playing out most dramatically in the world of medicine?
One area that immediately comes to mind is cancer. Cancer is in many ways a disease of uncontrolled growth and proliferation. The cells have lost their normal regulatory mechanisms. They're not listening to the conductor anymore, and they're just playing their own chaotic tune.
So that's where biochemistry comes in, right?
Yeah.
To understand those regulatory mechanisms, how they've gone wrong, and how we might be able to intervene.
Exactly. And we've made incredible strides in recent years, particularly with the development of targeted therapies. These therapies are designed to very specifically target the molecules and pathways that are driving that uncontrolled growth of the cancer cells while leaving the healthy cells relatively unharmed.
It's like being able to silence the specific instruments that are playing out of tune instead of just, muting the entire orchestra with traditional chemotherapy.
That's a great analogy. And this precision is only possible because of our deep understanding of the biochemistry of these cancer cells. For example, there are targeted therapies that block the activity of specific enzymes that are involved in cancer cell signaling, or drugs that prevent the formation of new blood vessels that tumors need to grow.
So we're not just throwing darts in the dark anymore. We're aiming for specific targets, thanks to biochemistry. What are some other areas where this precise approach is making a difference?
Well, another great example is enzyme replacement therapy for certain genetic disorders. You see, many genetic diseases are caused by deficiencies in specific enzymes that are essential for various metabolic processes. It's like having a missing or broken instrument in that orchestra.
And enzyme replacement therapy is like bringing in a replacement player.
Precisely. Patients receive infusions of that missing enzyme, and it can often dramatically improve their symptoms and their overall quality of life.
Can you give us an example, something our students can really connect with?
Sure, let's talk about Gaucher disease. It's caused by a deficiency in an enzyme called glucocerebrosidase. This enzyme is responsible for breaking down a certain type of fat molecule in the body. Without enough of this enzyme, these fat molecules build up in various organs, leading to a whole host of problems.
Yeah, like an enlarged spleen and liver bone pain anemia. It can be really serious.
It is. But with enzyme replacement therapy, we can give these patients back the enzyme they're missing, and the results can be incredible. Regular infusions of glucocerebrosidase can really reduce organ enlargement, improve blood counts, and alleviate bone pain.
So it's literally life-changing for many of these patients with Gaucher disease, and it all comes back to biochemistry, right? Understanding that specific enzyme deficiency allows us to develop this really targeted therapy that directly addresses the root cause of the disease.
Exactly. It's a testament to the power of biochemistry in medicine. And as we move forward with all these enzymics technologies, we're going to see even more opportunities for this kind of targeted, personalized approach to healthcare.
Speaking of oromics, it's almost overwhelming how much information we can now gather about a cell or an organism. All the RNA, all the proteins, all the metabolites. It's like trying to listen to all the instruments in the orchestra at once.
It is, and that's one of the challenges we're facing now. How do we actually make sense of all this data? How do we extract those meaningful insights from these massive data sets? It requires sophisticated computational tools and expertise, and this is an area where biochemists are playing a really crucial role.
It's like being a conductor who has to not only hear all the instruments, but also understand how they're all interacting, how the different melodies and harmonies are coming together to create the overall piece.
Exactly. It's a complex and challenging task, but it's also incredibly exciting because
Yeah.
the more we understand about these complex systems, the better equipped we'll be to develop new and more effective treatments for diseases that have, plagued humanity for so long.
And not just treatments, but preventative strategies too, right? If we can understand an individual's unique biochemical profile, we might be able to predict their risk for certain diseases and intervene early on.
Absolutely. And that's the real promise of personalized medicine. It's not just about treating diseases after they've developed, but about actually preventing them in the first place.
It sounds like biochemistry is going to be even more important to the future of medicine than it is today.
I have no doubt. And for our students, whether they're future doctors or biochemists, understanding these fundamental principles is going to be essential for their success.
So what can we as educators do to help our students grasp these really complex concepts and prepare them for this really exciting future?
I think that's a great topic to explore when we come back. We've talked about a lot in this deep dive. From sickle cell anemia to the Human Genome Project, it's clear that biochemistry is absolutely crucial to modern medicine. But how do we as educators make this complex world accessible and engaging for our students? Yeah, it's a real challenge, especially when you have students with such diverse backgrounds and learning styles. Some are drawn to the really tiny details, the molecular mechanisms, while others thrive on seeing that big picture, how it all fits together.
It's like some students get lost in the individual notes and others grasp the symphony's overall emotion. So how do we cater to everyone?
Well, I think analogies and real-world examples are key. We can't just throw facts and formulas at them. We have to tell the stories behind the science, like Garrett's work connecting seemingly unrelated conditions to inborn errors of metabolism. That's a narrative that really captures the imagination and shows them the power of observation and deduction.
Stories are definitely powerful tools, and relating concepts back to their own lives is so essential too. Like when we talk about familial hypercholesterolemia, we can emphasize how understanding those cellular uptake mechanisms has actually led to the development of statin drugs, which many of their family members might be taking.
Exactly. Making those connections helps them see just how relevant biochemistry is to their own lives and their future careers, whether they become doctors, researchers, or even just well-informed patients.
Right. And let's not forget the ethical considerations too. As our ability to manipulate genes and molecules grows, so does our responsibility to use that knowledge wisely. I think discussing these ethical dilemmas in class can spark some really great critical thinking and make them aware of the broader societal impacts of their work.
Absolutely. We need to equip them not just with the scientific knowledge, but also with the ethical framework to navigate the increasingly complex landscape of modern medicine.
The Human Genome Project is a perfect example.
Yeah.
It's opened up these incredible possibilities for personalized medicine. But it also raises questions about genetic privacy discrimination and access to these advancements.
It's so important to have those conversations to help them understand that science doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's intertwined with these social, ethical, and economic factors.
It's really about finding that balance between the awe-inspiring potential of biochemistry and the responsibility that goes along with it.
Exactly. We need to inspire them with the beauty and complexity of life at the molecular level, while also instilling in them that sense of ethical awareness and a commitment to using this knowledge for good.
This deep dive has been incredibly thought-provoking. It's not just about the facts of biochemistry, but how we teach, how we inspire, and how we prepare this next generation to navigate the ever-evolving world of medicine.
It really is a privilege to be a part of that journey, and who knows what incredible breakthroughs they'll make building on the foundation that we've laid.
I'm excited to see what the future holds. Now, before we go, I want to leave our listeners with a little something to think about. We've talked a lot about the symphony analogy, but what are some other creative ways to teach biochemistry and make it resonate with students? What are some of the unanswered questions that still drive you that might inspire them to pursue their own deep dives?
That's a great challenge for all of us to consider. I think the most important thing we can do as educators is to ignite that spark of curiosity, that thirst for knowledge that'll fuel their journey of lifelong learning.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of biochemistry and medicine. We'll see you next time for another exciting exploration of this fascinating field.